I'm going to be a cemetery representative.
Where are we, Paul?
Well, we're in the headquarters. What do you call
Over
this?
the office of Lakeview Cemetery.
With Jim Cannon. What's your role? You're the representative?
I'm the representative today, yes. Yeah.
You're the representative most days for decades.
I've been here for 26 years.
Yeah, I know, okay.
And other people have been here longer too, so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is who Jim Cannon is, and this is the office for the Lakeview Cemetery. I'm young, I'm spry. I go where I'm on. All right. Raven, isn't that appropriate?
That is appropriate. Okay.
Well, this is an interesting area. We have the Nordstrom plot right here, McGilva right over here, and Frederick Whitworth, the founder of Whitworth College.
What? Whitworth? Where?
Right over here.
Which one?
This obelisk, the small obelisk.
Look at it, Gene. You see that? You know what the significance of that is, Gene?
Well, both. What do you mean? What are you asking me?
Oh, come on. It's rhetorical.
The rhetorical significance is both of us attended Whitworth for at least a couple years.
Okay.
There you go.
We also have Dr. Eels from Whitman College right over there too.
Yeah, you're getting all the...
And Nelson, Frederick and Nelson's right there, so. You have some Denny's over this way.
Somebody should do a video tour of this thing, and it would take like 3 days to get through the video, wouldn't it? Because of all
There would be, yes.
Yeah.
You probably read the book by Robert Ferguson.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I like Robert.
He was a heck of a nice guy.
Dexter Horton right here. How about that?
You know, it's interesting. His monument looks kind of like the bank, doesn't it?
Right here. Here's Princess Angeline. Yeah, 1896, May 31st, 1896. They had a huge funeral procession. Huge. Big deal. I think the funeral was in Our Lady of Good Hope at 5th and Jefferson. David S. Maynard, March 22, 1808 to March 13, 1873. Sarah Yesler, she started the library, local library. There she is. Henry L. Yesler.
What did the L stand for?
I think for Larry or Louise or Loretta. I'm not sure actually. Marie's got her name down here. See? Oh, Crawley. 2007 doesn't seem. Is that long ago or not that long ago?
Yeah, for us it's not that long since we go back. But as I'm 67 years old now, that time starts flying. This is the door that was on Ned's mausoleum that he built.
So it was the door.
It was.
And the mausoleum was right here?
It was close by.
Yeah.
It's within 10 feet of here. When it collapsed, then his body was removed and probably brought to our new mausoleum, held temporarily, and then a few days later was buried in a concrete liner right here. And I can give you one story that's been passed down by Ned. The Bladine family, Edward Bladine worked here in the 1890s. His son, Charlie Bladine, was here when Ned's mausoleum collapsed. And then Edward Bladine's grandson was manager here later. And the story was that Ned would come out on the weekends and sit here just in case he died to make sure somebody would bring him here. He just wanted to make sure he would end up here and not be forgotten and left downtown.
Another one is that he went to Bonnie and Watson and hung out in the funeral parlor on the chance that he might just die there.
He could have done both, yeah.
Could have done both, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, come on in. How does he spell his name? As we say, we can take this as the final description of what his real name was. It was, what is that? Is N-I-S? What does Nis mean? We thought his name was Nil. It says Nis. Huh, okay, Nis Jacob Ohm. That's new to me, Nis. I thought it was Nils. We'll have to work on that. How long has this cracked block going to last, do you think?
Well, it's sandstone or marble. It's cut pretty deeply, so probably in 30 or 40 years it'll be more difficult to read.
Yeah.
Because until 1968 this stood up, it wasn't on flush with the ground.
Until 68. That's when you took down the... Were you around?
No.
No.
I was around enough to walk the Seattle Prep to go to school, but I wasn't working here.
All right, here we go. So we're still in the Lakeview Cemetery.
Okay, as we said in the article,
Yeah.
in its 4 short paragraphs, the character of our uncle, our Dutch Ned or Nils or Nis, it's full of ambiguities and uncertainties, even in the spelling of his names, as we saw on the plaque itself nearby here. We're in the Lakeview Cemetery here. It calls him Nis. Normally you think of him as Ness or Nels. So what do we make of that? I don't know.
And a woman who once received post
point.
from him as a child identified him not as German or Norwegian, but Sicilian.
That's right. She was quite young. She was born in the 70s. No, that was in the 70s when Dutch Ned would visit the family near Auburn, or in Auburn, which was then called Savage still, after a hero from the Indian War. And she described him as being Sicilian and having saved his money from delivering mail between Seattle and Auburn, saving some of it to send to his poor sister in Sicily. So that's the only indication that he was Sicilian. The rest of the time he's he's mostly Scandinavian, which his name would suggest, even with all its spelling, O-M, O-M-H, O-H-M-N, O-H-M-N, W, I mean not W, but a lot of different spellings. But again, on the gravestone, we've made it pretty clear, at least, how his last name was spelled. And you're going to put the gravestone footage in right here,
Oh yeah,
aren't you?
right
Okay.
here.
So, but what was his qualities as a human qualities? Well, he was actually had a stable life. Look at, he had 2 primary jobs, which is working for Yesler, moving sawdust, out in the tide flats to get rid of the sawdust around the mill, and ipso to also lift the city a bit above the tides. And then he also had this mail delivering job.
Was he the first, arguably the first mailman?
I have no idea. No, wait, I do have an idea. The first mail was delivered by canoe up from Olympia before that. Although he came here apparently in 54, which is very early. He was then, he must have been like about 30 then, 30 years old. So he lived from the 1820s to he died in 98. And the thing that's most curious about him is I think he was probably suffering a little bit from dementia, because he was described in his last years as having built his mausoleum so that he would feel confident that his bones would wind up somewhere that he could be certain about. So he built a mausoleum, and although it's gone, it fell to ruin in the late 50s, no, the 60s, I believe, and we've got some pictures of that, which were shared with us by the cemetery from their files on his location, on his grave. We can't really know what his attitude was to his gravestone, because he has been made fun of so much by humorists and straight historians, like Warren, for instance, who did an article of him in the 80s, the guy who was in charge of Mohi. He basically wrote a comedy feature on Ned, making him sort of daffy. And it's possibly he was in his last years. But heck, he had certainly a substantially strong, enduring vocational life with those 2 jobs and whatever else. He lived in what was called a shed or a shack on the edge of Capitol Hill, not far from here. Sort of overlooked Lake Union. And but what is a shack or a shed? I mean, you got to wonder whether this isn't just all part of the characterization. The worst job that's ever been done in his life, and the few little tidbits that we know about him that actually survived that are in documents or whatever, or in early oral accounts. The worst of treatment of all that was done by a name I can't remember, fortunately, who does a lot on spooks in Seattle. I think he even has tours. And his description and illustrations, which are completely bogus, of Ned, Uncle Dutch Ned. And by the way, Dutch would be Deutsch probably for German. So was he German? Who knows? German, Dutch, Scandinavian, Sicilian? Who knows? But his description of him was much more elaborate and full of all sorts of sentimental bosh, which of course we don't know anything about him regarding those sentimental matters. But that's what goes on in soft history. So, but Gene, you had an idea. You just discussed, you pointed out recently, you thought that he may be a what?
He's a, obviously this is a man who shows up in Seattle and like so many, he had to invent himself. And so I think that the process of self-invention may well have included his, fabricating an identity as a Sicilian.
His stories to the little girl down there in Auburn.
Right. She said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I'm from a fabled land of Sicily."
Yeah, Sicily. I got a sister there. Yeah, that's the ticket. Yeah. Maybe you're right. The thing is, the conclusion is we'll never know We'll never know who he was, how he felt much about anything. We'll never know. We've got pictures of him standing by his mausoleum, as you can see in the blog. And
well, maybe we should ask for guesses.
All right. Does anything? First of all, let's ask not only for guesses. Does anybody among the listeners or readers know anything more about Dutch Ned? And then let's also get some would you call them, imaginative guesses? Or
yes,
speculations?
I'd ask for speculation.
Speculations about Ned's life, and one we consider the best, wins a prize. Probably an old VHS tape.
All right, well, say good night, Paul.
Good night. You can put me next to Walt Crowley.
Oh, that would be
Walt's
nice.
up there. I don't know if there's room. Maybe Walt would move over.
You could slide in next to Walt.
Yeah, I could slide in the wall. That'd be fine with me. Neither of us had children, so we don't have to worry about there being any additions. Well,
No.
we did have wives. Don't know about them.
Maybe Marie will want to slide in on the other side of Walt.
Marie might want to be in there. Yeah, I think that's true. I can't speak for Jenny. I don't know. Maybe you can ask her.
I'll certainly ask her.
Delicate.